Allow me to introduce myself again. You know me by now. I'm Randy Shroeder, and as you know, after years being a distributor in the network marketing industry and after 52 fabulous weeks of building a Black Diamond distributorship at MonaVie, my friend Alan Larson, my friend of so many years, asked me if I would be willing to change my role such that my life experience and my industry experience could impact many. And so I now speak to you no longer as a distributor, but as the International Distributor Ambassador. I speak to you as your partner and counterpart, and my great goal and objective of this particular piece of work called the Staying Started Manual can impact you for good. That's my hope. That's my goal. I think back of this 20 years experience of mine, and I think of some of the talented and the great people that I met along the way who got started, but they didn't stay started. My career has become one of such dramatic success because I got started and I stayed started. The fact that you're now reviewing this material implies a couple of things. It means that you made it through the getting started process, and now one of two things is likely true. Either your group is growing and flourishing, and you're finding yourself at a point where you need to develop further your leadership skills. I'm the most positive, optimistic person on planet Earth, and so I'm going to hope that's what it is. There's another possibility. The other possibility is that you've hit the wall. The other possibility is that you have come to a screeching halt in your growth. One possibility is that you grew fast for a period of time, then you stopped growing fast, and now for some reason your business seems to be going backwards, and so we reconvene. No longer looking at these 10 steps from the very simplest standpoint of getting started, but now maybe doing a little corrective action, some remedial action. Maybe it's because you simply want to become more at this stage of your career. Maybe it's because you've hit the wall. Let's go back through the 10 steps with a different view, with a view now of leadership as opposed to getting started yourself. Now we look to the concept and the process of staying started, but not just started doing activities, but started doing productive activities and being willing to measure and to candidly appraise where we are up until now. Now, step number one is to enroll in MonaVie. We can't really do that again. You've already enrolled in MonaVie. And so in this session, I'll replace step number one, enrolling in MonaVie. I will replace that thought with determining why you enrolled in MonaVie in the first place. I go back these 20 years to when I first got involved in network marketing, and I've described to you in previous sessions the way that I so fell in love with everything that I observed and experienced. I met this fellow named Craig, and there was nothing about Craig that separated him from the world, and he was so much more successful than me, and I remember he said that he got to work when he wanted, where he wanted, with whom he wanted, if he wanted. Well, that was my initial why. It was because when I was a stockbroker, I was told when I would work. I lived in Southern California. The markets opened early, and I wasn't just trading in stocks, but I was trading in futures, and it meant that I had to be in the office many mornings, most mornings, by 5:15 a.m. Well, my first why was that my children never saw me in the morning. That was my first why. Whenever I found myself starting to stop, what helped me stay started was when I remembered that why. If I remained a stockbroker, my children would continue to grow and I would continue to be absent. And it wasn't just that I was absent in the morning. Because I had to leave my home so early, when the kids wanted to play in the afternoon, I was either grumpy or too tired, or I was sleeping. So what was my first why? My first why was that I wanted to work when I wanted, not when the job dictated that I work. Whenever I found myself starting to stop, I was able to stay started when I remembered that why. I think you'll need to identify for yourself very clearly right now why. Why is it that you'll make the required sacrifice to stay started? And that word sacrifice, some people don't like to hear it. I have never known anything great to be accomplished without sacrifice, ever. In my life, in my experience, I've had such great, joy-filled moments. But you know what? In advance of almost every success, there has been substantial and significant sacrifice. For me, it's been critically important to always keep a firm grip on the why. And so first of all is that I wanted to work when I wanted. I wish that you could spend a few moments with me in my office right now. My office is a place of unbelievable, extreme beauty. Today I work where I want. I don't just work when I want. I get to choose. Now, this for me is volunteer work. It's been a very long time since I've had to work to generate additional income. I've been so blessed financially as a result of this career of mine in this industry of network marketing, and now, of course, the capstone to it being the chance to work with you in the development and furthering of our business here internationally with MonaVie. But today I work exactly where I want. Where I work, most people would pay to be where I am, where I work. It's absolutely extraordinary looking over the Pacific Ocean. And you know what? When I travel to do the business here in just a couple of days, I'll go to Brazil. But I'm still working where I want. That's volunteer work. I'm not there because anyone's imposed that upon me. And so for me, the whys. Why do I do what I do? Well, because it grants me the opportunity to work when I want. And that was the big why in the very beginning. It grants me the opportunity to work where I want. That was not as well defined a why for me at that moment. Today it is. Now it is, because as our successes go along and more things become possible, frankly, I've learned that wherever I go, there I am, and I have developed over the course of my life, I can be happy just about where I am, but I love having the choice to work where I want, whether that be to choose where in the world I personally reside or to choose where in the world I'll pursue the business, the chance to work where I want. That's another one of my big whys. That's why I chose to stay started whenever I felt myself stopping, to choose when I would work, to choose where I would work. This next one, I will tell you, is a big one for me. This idea of being able to select with whom I will work. You know, when I was involved in that stock brokerage industry, I can't honestly say that I had relationships. What I really had was a whole bunch of managed conflict. That's what I had. My whole world was about managed conflict, because in that environment, it was so competitive. My every success was born of somebody else's failures. You know, it was such a different environment. Today, I can honestly tell you that if I find someone to be abusive, if I find someone to lack integrity, if I find someone to have values that are considerably different than mine and choose to impose those values upon me, I can simply opt out of the relationship. You know, today I absolutely get to choose with whom I will work. What a joy, what an absolute gift that is. You know, somewhere along the way, that really stuck in my mind. It really stuck that if I chose to stay started, if I stayed the course, if I in fact developed the skills required to really succeed in this industry, that I would someday, one day, have the chance to opt in or to opt out of relationships. Today, I have the freedom to opt out of any toxic relationship as it relates to my business development. Wow, what a gift that is. So why do I do this? Well, it's because it grants me the chance to work when I want, where I want, with whom I want. And you know, this last part for me was a fairy tale. It wasn't something that I could imagine, but the chance to work if I want. Today, believe it or not, I no longer work for money. For so many years, I worked for money. I'm willing to bet as you review this material that today you work for money. As a result of staying started, as a result of staying started at the times when I wanted to stop, today I no longer work for money. Today, and for the last many years, money has worked for me. Well, that's it. When Craig Tillotson stood on stage that first day and I heard him speak, those thoughts were then for me not well developed. Those thoughts were not well developed at all. Today they are. The chance to work when you want, the chance to work where you want, the chance to work with whom you want, and someday, one day, being able to choose if you want to work because you have invested financial assets that support your family. Wow. See, all of those things combined, that was what caused me to be willing, and you hear me use that word a lot, that's what caused me to be willing to stay started when I desperately wanted to stop. I think it's important for you to identify right now, what is it that will cause you to become willing to make the required sacrifice to stay started when you want to stop. I don't know anyone who has become engaged in our business and just went step by step by step, success upon success upon success. What I have seen instead are people with periods of success followed by periods of frustration, periods of success, periods of frustration, periods of failure. Why? Because we all have to grow and learn and become a little bit more than we were when we got here. Well, step number one is to determine why exactly you are going to choose to be willing. And notice I said choose. I absolutely believe in our business success is a choice. You need to determine for yourself why you will choose to stay started when you desperately want to stop. That is step number one. Step number two is to place an appropriate initial order. Well, I'd like you now to go back and contemplate the first order. What was your initial order when you joined MonaVie? And now, given your heightened knowledge and understanding, was it appropriate? Was it appropriate based upon your goal, your financial goal? Was it appropriate based upon your financial circumstance? Was it appropriate based upon your willingness to work? You know, if when I became involved in MonaVie, if my initial order was not appropriate for me, then this would be the time to take remedial action. Now would be the time to go and to repair that circumstance. So here's what I learned so many years ago in this business. People in our organization will tend to mimic our behavior. They will do what they observe us doing. They will not do what we teach them to do, but they will do what they observe us doing. And so, my guess is that as you proceed along in this process, time after time after time, you have people arriving at their step number 2, and they're saying, what did you do? What did you do when you arrived at this pivotal point in the development of our business? Now, of course, we know that one can become a MonaVie distributor without placing an order. We also know that 1,000 times nothing is nothing, that our income is predicated upon the movement of products from the company into our organization. And so if I didn't place an appropriate order, then I'll be posed with the question again and again, Randy, what did you do? And now the entire multiplication throughout my organization will be based on inappropriate orders, typically orders that are too small. Now, is it possible that an initial order was placed that was larger than is appropriate? Absolutely. I don't want people placing orders in this company that they cannot afford. I want the order to be appropriate based upon your goal, your financial circumstance, and your willingness to work. Now, I invite you to candidly appraise your initial order. Was it correct or was it not? If it was too large, there's not much we can do about that right now. The odds are that it was too small. The vast majority of people with whom I interact entered the business incorrectly on the low side. I encourage you to take remedial action now. What do you want your business to look like? Here's another way I'll phrase that question. If everyone in your business did for the next 6 months what you personally have done for the last 6 days, what would your business look like? For some of us, the answer is great. For others of us, the answer is not so good. Here's another way to look at that same general set of thoughts. What does your account look like right now? If everyone in your business has an account that looks like yours. In other words, are you personally active right now as we speak? What are the productivity standards that you're living up to? Step number 2 is to place an appropriate initial order. I encourage you right now to take a moment to revisit that initial order and determine if you should place a subsequent order now, and then teach that simple principle throughout your organization so that you begin to get proper product flow. Remember that what may bring us here together might simply be a desire for you to gain further leadership skills. It's quite possible that you're here seeking to stay started because you've hit the wall. If your organization is being built upon a multiplication of orders that are too small, that is a very, very common cause of hitting the wall and having productivity come to a stop. Step number 3 is to establish auto-ship. And of course, we discussed auto-ship in that Staying Started manual. I talked about my life experience where I was so fortunate to sell a business and have a dramatic financial outcome as a result of having 68,000 people on auto-ship. Now, I encourage you to look at your own business. What does your auto-ship look like right now? Is your auto-ship a 1-case auto-ship? Is your auto-ship a 2-case auto-ship? What is it? And then ask yourself this question. What do you want your business to look like? Do you want everyone in your organization to be on a 1-case auto-ship? Or do you want them to be on 2? If you would like your entire organization to have an auto-ship multiplier of 2 cases and you have only a 1-case auto-ship, you know what? It's never going to occur. It's interesting for me. I recall that I surveyed my business on a weekly basis and let this thought get drilled into your mind. That which is measured can be improved. And during those 52 weeks that I was growing a distributorship in MonaVie, I would survey my leadership structure. And it was always surprising to me to find that most frequently, even people who were at the top of my leadership hierarchy, the highest ranks, there would always be 1 or 2 of them who were not even on auto-ship. The laws of the cosmos will bend. If you are teaching something to others that you're not doing yourself, I assure you that the outcome you seek will not occur. One of the absolute keys to staying started is to have a business that is being built upon a solid auto-ship foundation. I encourage you right now to review your own auto ship, and I encourage you to determine if it would be appropriate for that auto ship to increase. There's a great likelihood that if your own auto ship went up, that people in your business would likewise have a higher auto ship. I strongly encourage you to revisit that issue. Step number one was what? In the Getting Started manual, step number one was to enroll in MonaVie. But in Staying Started, now we instead take a look at why we initially made that decision, and we measure the reasons that we would choose to stay started when we so desperately want to stop. That is step number one. Step number two is to revisit our initial order. And step number three is to understand the true values of auto ship. And here, I wish that I could be with you. I wish that I could draw a chart. I want you to know that there are 3 lines of productivity in any network marketing company. There are 3 lines of productivity. It may very well be that you have to come back and revisit this issue when you have matured further in our business. But I want you to imagine an X and a Y axis. Imagine an X and a Y axis, and imagine the first slope, the first line coming out of that center point being at a 45-degree angle. That line we'll call the promotion line. What is promotion? Promotion is the value of any product you have purchased that is greater than your own intended consumption in the first month. The slope of the promotion line dictates the growth of all other lines in our business. And so now that would fall into step number 2, placing an appropriate initial order. It should include products for your own consumption, and it should include products to deliver to others as samples or to sell in your business building activities. That's step number 1, to create a promotion line. Step number 2 is the second line of promotion. That second line of promotion is the auto ship line of the membership. The reason that I was able to sell a business for so many millions of dollars back in 2001 is because I had 68,000 people creating that second line of activity. The slope of the first line dictates the slope of the second. Why? Because when one has promotional volume, when one buys products that are greater than those for their own consumption, that then is what sets the stage for home business presentations. Home business presentations cause more people to join the business. That causes the auto ship line to get steeper. So the slope of line number 1, that's driven by initial orders. The slope of line number 1 dictates the slope of line number 2. Line number 2 is the income that takes on a degree of permanence. Now, what I just told you may well have been entirely confusing. If it was, come back and listen to this CD again in another month, and again in another month, and again in another month, because you will come to understand that promotional volume is what drags behind it internal consumption. Internal consumption is what stabilizes the business. First orders grow the business. That is step number 2. First orders grow the business. Replacement orders by auto ship stabilize the business. And the third line of productivity is the pure consumption of product by those who have looked at our business in home business reviews, chosen not to become involved in the business, but fell in love with the product. 3 lines of productivity. The first line, promotion, that's step number 2, initial orders that are appropriate. The second line is auto ship of the membership. That is step number 3. And the third line is product consumption by those who looked at the business, opted out of the business, but opted into the product. Now, what I just said may have made sense only to 5 or 10% of the people who review it. Someday it'll make sense to you. When it makes sense to you, you know you've grasped a new understanding of the realities and the mechanics of network marketing and how it really works. Step number 4 is to acquire the initial toolkit. And it may seem like there's not much more that we could say about this acquisition of the initial toolkit, but there really is. You know, it's so interesting for me. I periodically do presentations where I'm in training environments among leadership, not just among brand new people. I'm in training environments among leadership. And now I want you to imagine that you're in a room full of 200 or 300 people and that you're part of this audience. And now I will ask you, is there anyone in this room who's willing to admit that they have prospects who are upset or confused or concerned about the dynamics of the network marketing industry? You see, if we're willing to confront this issue, if we're willing to talk about it, there will always be those who say, well, yeah, I've got my concerns about it. Now, here's my question to you. If you have got a prospect or a team member who is significantly concerned about the network marketing industry, what will you do about it? Now, right now, if going back to the Getting Started workbook, if you took step number 4, then you acquired the initial toolkit. If you took step number 4 and acquired the initial toolkit, and if you then fully took step number 9 where you came to understand that initial toolkit, then you should know intuitively and automatically right now, what does one do if we have a prospect or a distributor who has doubts, fears, insecurities about the network marketing industry? What is it? What do we do? The answer is we show them the Evolution of Network Marketing DVD. Now, here is my question for you. Since we now arrive at this revisiting of these steps and we're reviewing again this step number 4, here's my question for you. When is the last time you personally reviewed the Evolution of Network Marketing? If you have not personally reviewed the Evolution of Network Marketing in the last 30 days, then I am willing to bet that you're not as far across that bridge of belief, which is of course covered in step number 5, but I'm willing to bet you're not as far across that bridge of belief as you could be. And here's what I have further come to realize over the course of my career in this industry. There are so many people, good and well-intended people, who encourage others in their group to acquire that initial toolkit who did not do so themselves. Right now, measure it. Did you acquire the initial toolkit? Did you or did you not? I have found that it is a relatively small percentage of people who go through those 10 steps of getting started back in the Getting Started workbook, who do all of those steps correctly, and one of the big gaping holes is a failure to acquire the initial toolkit. When one fails to acquire the initial toolkit, it almost guarantees that step number 5 will not be done well. Because why? Because the various resources aren't out there. So here's my very specific question to you again. When did you last review the Evolution of Network Marketing? When did you? If you didn't acquire the initial toolkit, I'm willing to bet that if you've reviewed it even once, it was a link which has since expired, you didn't have the hard copy, and today your belief is going the wrong direction, not the right direction, and whenever your belief is going the wrong direction, productivity comes to a screeching halt. Step number 4 is to acquire the initial toolkit. Now, I'm very, very sensitive to the fact that people need to make money so frequently when people join us. They need to make money. They don't have money to spend. I understand that. I get it. At the same time, there are certain requirements to succeed in our business. Is there a requirement for you to buy tools in order to become a MonaVie distributor? No, of course there's not. Is there a requirement for you to have the tools to really succeed and grow a big business? My life experience says yes. My life experience says yes. Did you really take step number 4? If you didn't take step number 4, do it now. Do it now. Your organization can become an organization that replicates, that duplicates, that's based upon a duplicatable process where a tool talks. That can occur. You know, if you grew for a period of time, and so often I have people join me in the business and they grow for a period of time and it looks so easy for them. They're failing to recognize that it's growing for a period of time because of their unique skill set. Maybe it's growing for a period of time because we brought one person into the business who had a great and untapped circle of influence. Suddenly, we shoot the arrow into the sky. It only goes so high, and what seems so easy no longer feels easy. You reach a transition point where it can no longer be about a unique skill set. It can no longer be about an individual. It now has to become about a replicatable process, and that requires step number 4. It was not required to take step number 4 to start well. There are plenty of people who join us and because of their personal dynamics start well without taking step number 4. However, you shoot an arrow into the sky, it only goes so high. When you arrive at that point of impasse, go back and revisit step number 4. Perhaps that is a point of failure in your own organization that could be corrected at this moment in time. And once again, go back to step number 1. What are you willing to do in order to stay started when you so desperately want to stop? At the very moment in time when your business is challenging and difficult is not typically a moment in time when a person says, wow, I'd like to go out and buy some tools. My strongest encouragement for you is to revisit step number 4. Now in step number 5. I love step number 5. I live in step number 5. I want you to live step number 5 with me. I really hope that we can do that. You know, whenever I fly on the corporate jet, what do you suppose happens to my belief? My belief goes up. Can everybody do that? No, everybody can't, but can you? Yes. You say, well, how? You can simply separate yourself from the pack. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that much. You can separate yourself from the pack. And as you separate yourself from the pack, then you'll start to have increasing opportunities when you can interact with ownership and management. And as you interact with ownership and management, then your belief will absolutely skyrocket. But what do we do now? What do we do specifically and exactly right now? There are a few belief-building activities that I would strongly encourage you to take. And I mentioned one of them a few moments ago, and that was to review at least once every 30 days. At least once every 30 days, review the evolution of network marketing. Here's the next great belief-building activity with MonaVie. Just increase your juice consumption. Just increase your consumption. When you increase your consumption, your belief will go up. Again and again and again and again, that transpires. Increase your own consumption of the MonaVie product, your belief in this company will go up. What's the next thing that you can do? I think we have to always remember that our business is an event-driven business. One of the reasons that I was able to stay started, even though there were times when I desperately wanted to stop, I was able to stay started because I broke the business down into little tiny bite-sized chunks. Here's what I've come to realize. Our business is an event-building business, and it's just like climbing a staircase. So right now, what I would encourage you to do is take a look at the events calendar for your nation. Take a look at the events calendar for your region. Take a look at the events calendar for your local market and determine what there is that you can begin building towards. My experience has shown me that if you're not building towards a specific event, then in all likelihood, you're not building. I'll give you a quick example. At this particular moment in time, at this flashpoint in time right now, what am I personally building towards? Right now, at this flashpoint in time, I am building towards a series of events in Brazil. When I say I'm building towards them, what does that mean? It means that my total focus, energy, and attention is geared towards causing distributors, brand new ones, leadership, and prospects to understand the dynamics of an upcoming group of presentations to be held in Brazil. I am building, aggressively building towards a series of events in Brazil. And you know what? That series of events in Brazil are now coming up only about a week away. So I've got a very, very, very short, tight time horizon. So my question to you right now, as we speak, as you listen to this material, perhaps for the first time, what are you building towards in the next 7 days? I am always building towards something specific in the next 7 days. And you say, well, wait a minute, Randy, can that really be? Are you always getting ready to go somewhere in the next 7 days? No, but I always have my international web session every Monday. And so I am always building towards that. There is always a specific event that I'm building towards in every 7-day period. That's an always for me. That's a constant. So I've always got a very, very short-term vision of something that I'm building towards right now. I then always have a midterm vision. And so what's my midterm vision? My midterm vision right now is that I'm building towards an event that will be held in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Now, that's not as tight as the framework for what I'm about to do in Brazil, but not too far behind that. A midterm, a mid-frame, about a month out, I'm building towards that event in Calgary. And then about 3 months out, I'm building towards a MonaVie Regional. And so you see, I've always got a very, very short-term build focus. I've got a midterm, and I've got a little bit longer-term build focus. The fact that I have those targets keeps me constantly engaged. And notice I said that word target. If we have a target, we just might hit it. If we have a target, we just might hit it. If you don't have a target, if you allow it to be vague on the front end, it will be vague on the back end. And so as we go on through this discussion, I'm going to help you identify a couple of targets. Right now, I'll give you the first one. You know, one of the reasons that I was able to stay started with a focus on long-term goals was that I didn't forget to have short-term objectives. If you want to stay started, then stay focused on the basic business building activity, which is to recruit. You know, I once created a training program called Recruit, 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 the only sure way to success. And now all of these years later, I still believe that to be true. There is one sure way to succeed, and that is to recruit. Adopt a productivity standard. Adopt a productivity standard that suggests that you'll receive a first order bonus every single week. If you receive a first order bonus every single week, you'll be interacting with a brand new person who's full of energy, who's full of life, who's full of excitement for the business. And you know what? When you're interacting with a brand new person who's full of energy, full of life, and full of excitement for the business, you have just revisited step 5 because your own belief will then be going the right way on the bridge. Step number 1 is to identify why it is that you are and will remain willing to make the required sacrifices to stay started when you so desperately want to stop. Step 2 is to revisit your initial order, recognizing that there are 3 lines of productivity in a network marketing company. The first line is the promotion line. If you failed to create a promotion line when you joined the business, that's now being replicated throughout your organization, and that will create malaise. Step number 3 is to establish auto-ship. Auto-ship is what creates stability behind the promotion. Our business is grown by first orders. That's the promotion line. Our business is supported and sustained by auto ship and by the consumption of those people who look at our business, opt out of the business, but opt into the product. Step number 4 is what? To acquire the initial toolkit and now be honest with yourself. Did you do it or did you not? If you did not, do so now. That's my strongest encouragement. I can absolutely show you how to not waste time, effort, energy, and money. If you want my outcomes, then engage in my behaviors. And I have to tell you, that this is not a buffet. I wish that it was. I wish it was a buffet. I wish you could pick and choose. Periodically I find people and they say, well, Randy, I like what you say about step number 1, so I'm going to do that, but I don't really agree with you on step number 3. I'm not going to do that. And I love what you say about step number 5, but that step number 7, I'm not going to do that. Folks, I wish it was a buffet line. It's not. It's a prefix meal. I wish I could tell you that if you do 85% of what I teach, you'd get 85% of the outcomes, but you don't. It's an all or none deal. It's an all or none deal. If you want my outcomes, and I promise you I want them for you, if you want my outcomes, engage in my behaviors. Step number 1, determine why you're going to be willing to make the sacrifice to stay started when you so desperately want to quit. Step number 2 is to create a proper promotion line in your business by placing an appropriate initial order that will pull behind it an auto ship line. Step number 3. Step number 4 is to acquire the initial toolkit. Why? Because only if you acquire the initial toolkit is it logical to believe that will happen in your organization. Only if you have that toolkit circulating in your organization is it reasonable to believe that we will have a business that is predicated upon a replicatable process instead of upon an individual skill set. Step number 5 is to build belief. How do we do it? By reviewing the tools, but by adopting that first productivity standard, earn a first order bonus. That means that you'll be interacting with a brand new person. When you're interacting with a brand new person who's full of that energy, that raw enthusiasm of having just joined the business, that will keep you going the right direction on the bridge. Step number 6, this creation of an initial candidate list. Here, I want to talk to you about the thought that we can so live our lives such that our candidate list always stays in front of us, such that our candidate list is always growing. Over the course of my career, I've had so many people say, gosh, Randy, will you teach me how to advertise? Just today, I received an email. Randy, there must be ads that people use. Show us how. When you get tempted to advertise, I beg you to instead give that money to the More Project. Don't spend money on advertising. Don't do it. I don't know anyone for whom that's been an effective and a productive way to grow our business. When you're tempted to advertise, give the money to the More Project, and instead develop the skill of so living your life so that your candidate list always stays in front of you. And for me, this simply becomes, once again, a decision. I decided a number of years ago that I would never let a 24-hour period go by without adding someone to my candidate list. I just decided that. And you've heard in the invitation, you've heard me teach to simply catch people doing something right. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you really do that? Have you started catching people doing something right? If you haven't started catching people doing something right, then here's what I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet that your candidate list is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If you've developed that simple discipline of learning to catch people doing something right, then your candidate list stays in front of you. Now, here's the next question. And I'm so careful the way that I describe this, because I value all people the same. I really do. I value people who have yet to have their first success the same as I value a person who's had great success. Now, that doesn't mean that I consider them the same in terms of opportunity of sponsoring one of those two categories of people. It just means that I value all people the same. I'm sometimes misunderstood when I now do this little illustration of measuring people on a scale from 1 to 10. But always my whole life I've done that. I've always measured myself on a scale of 1 to 10, and I've always looked around and I've always been able to find some people who have accomplished greater things than I have, and I aspire to that greater success. And I, of course, meet people along the way who have not had some of the great successes that I've had yet. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, I've always kind of visioned myself as a 7, and I have always sought to grow from a 7 to an 8. I always visioned myself at a 7. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 7. I want to become an 8. Why do I want to become an 8? Because I'll be happier. But from a business building standpoint, if I become an 8, I'll have access to a different circle of influence. This is a key. Step number 6 was to create an initial candidate list. But now in staying started, if we want to have a candidate list constantly stay in front of us, the way to make certain that occurs is for you and for me, for us to become more. It's not just about what we do, it's about what we become. Right now as we speak, you're in the process of becoming something, and so am I. My question is, are you becoming something on purpose, or are you simply letting it happen? I decided a number of years ago I'd live my life on purpose, not by accident. That wound up having great implications for my business, though that's not why I chose to do it. Step number 6 is to create an initial candidate list. In this Staying Started manual, step number 6 is to make more candidates available to you because of what you are consciously becoming. A person told me a number of years ago that great people read great books. I'm not a great person, but I seek to become one someday, and so I read great books. Let me ask you this question. What are you reading right now? What are you reading? What are you listening to right now? Not just this audio, but when you're not listening to me, what are you listening to? What are you watching? You know, I made a decision some number of years ago that I would very, very carefully guard what I let in, and I encourage you to very carefully guard what you let in. I've chosen to push myself against the grinding wheel of life, to be constantly engaged in a process of becoming more. When I'm becoming more, that becomes attractive to other people, and my candidate list constantly stays in front of me. Step number 6 is to make another category of candidates available to you as a result of the attraction. And remember, our business is a business of attraction. It is not a business of promotion. In my life, I have never run fast enough to catch a candidate. It's when a candidate sees in me something they would aspire to. When a candidate says, wow, network marketing is great. Within network marketing, MonaVie is incredible. And if I could be involved with that person, that's a leader who would add more value to the overall picture. See, when you become that leader that others would aspire to, then the business gets really easy. So here at step number 6, I just want to ask you, what are you becoming? What are you becoming today based on your daily disciplines? And here I have to teach you mine. Those who have listened to me teach for some time know that daily disciplines done daily build character. Daily disciplines done daily build character. If you want your candidate list to always stay in front of you, then adopt these daily disciplines. My first daily discipline, of course, has to do with my spiritual well-being. And I'm very careful here. I value and I respect your version of spirituality, whatever it is. I'm the most open book. I want you to share some of my life's successes. And so I just choose to be fully disclosing. I have 2 separate versions of my spiritual discipline. The first version is my recovery version. For those who don't know me, now you do. I struggled with drugs and alcohol for years. I no longer do. That's a part of my past. So the first version of my spiritual well-being, my first spiritual discipline is just to say, hey, God, left up to my own devices, we both know I'll ruin my life today. You take charge, not me. I have a daily discipline as it relates to that part of my spiritual development. And then I have an active personal participation in my faith. I encourage you to have daily disciplines as it relates to your spiritual well-being. In so doing, you will become more, and there will be another category of candidate available to you. That's not why I do it. I don't do it about my business. I do it about life, but there's a secondary outcome to my business. My second daily discipline has to do with my physical well-being. The truth is that I like chocolate more than I like spinach, but I eat more spinach than chocolate. Why? Because it's better for me. I have daily disciplines as it relates to nutrition. I encourage you to have daily disciplines as it relates to nutrition. Let me ask you this question. Do you suppose that your candidate sees MonaVie, at least in some respect, based on the way they see you? My answer to you is yes. If your candidate respects you, then they will see MonaVie as introduced by you in a different light than if they don't respect you. No matter how great you become at step number 7 at inviting, no matter how great you become, your candidate will still see MonaVie in some respects the way they see you. Ask yourself this question. Are you more physically fit today than you were 6 months ago or not? If you didn't make a conscious decision to become more physically fit, then you're probably not. Well, I have daily disciplines as it relates to my physical well-being, and that has to do both with nutrition and it has to do with exercise. And I will tell you that our business is a daily momentum business, and I will further tell you that you can compare it, at least I can compare it specifically to going to the gym. When I go to the gym today, because I went to the gym this morning, I can kind of tell you what it'll be like tomorrow morning. I'll wake up and I will want to go to the gym. That's what it'll be like. But if I went 4 or 5 days in a row without going to the gym, it'd be as though I'd never walked in. That's the same way that our business works. If today you engage in the correct activities that result in you adding at least one quality candidate to your candidate list, that's step number 6, tomorrow you will want to do the same. If you allow the next 6 days to go by without adding a quality candidate to your candidate list, that candidate list will run dry and it will be as though you never put pen to paper. Daily disciplines done daily build character. When I exercise every day, I want to do it the next day. When you engage in our business building practices every day, you'll want to do them the next day. Well, daily disciplines done daily build character. My first series of disciplines have to do with my spiritual well-being. Second is my physical well-being. Third is my mental well-being. What are you learning? And are you learning on purpose or are you learning by accident? Great people read great books. I absolutely believe that to be true. I know so many people who learn by accident. What do I mean by that? If you watch the television, you're learning by accident. Depending on what you're listening to on the radio, you're learning by accident. I choose instead to learn on purpose. What in the world does that have to do with our business? As you become more, there will be increasing candidate lists available to you. Entire groups of people who are not available to you at a certain station of personal development. There's an entire category of people who become available to you when you push yourself against the grinding wheel of life, when on your scale of 1 to 10, you stop being a 7 and start being an 8. And so over the course of my whole life, I've always measured myself on a scale of 1 to 10. I've thought myself as a 7. I've pushed myself against the grinding wheel of life. How do I do that? Daily disciplines done daily build character. The very moment that I become an 8, I recalibrate the scale. I call myself a 7 again and go back to work. So I have daily disciplines as it relates to my spiritual, my physical, my mental, and my emotional well-being. I encourage you to adopt your own set of daily disciplines. And then something magic will occur. Though it wasn't the intended outcome, step number 6 will become permanent. The reason my candidate list has always stayed in front of me, the reason I have been able to recruit at will literally throughout my career, is because I have constantly been on a process of improvement. And when we improve, it is attractive to others, and increasing numbers of candidates become available to us. Literally, they will seek us out. That is a gift that I would offer for you if you will engage in your own set of daily disciplines. That's step number 6. Step number 7 is to learn how to invite. And of course, you heard me say in the Getting Started workbook that there is simply no skill that is more important. And now I'm going to call upon you to make a decision to master the art of inviting. The only way that you will master the art of inviting is if you begin setting aside time and having the discipline to practice and practice and practice. And you know, the very best way for you to become a great inviter, the very best way is to invite. As you've heard me say, if you want to become a great inviter, invite more. There's one more way to do it, and that is to get involved in the process of teaching inviting within your group. Don't ever, however, fall into the trap of replacing your own personal inviting activity with teaching activity. Let the two go hand in hand. Let them go side by side. Now, that which is measured can be improved. When is the last time that you personally practiced, rehearsed inviting, spoke it into a microphone, into a handheld recording device, and listened to yourself? You know what? I'm willing to bet that 75 or 80% of you, and you are people listening here to the Staying Started material, you made it past Getting Started, and you arrived at some level of success. That's what got you here. And I'm willing to bet that 75% of the people reviewing this material right now have never done that exercise. If you'll be one of those people who becomes willing, I use that word a lot, willing, if you become willing to push yourself against the grinding wheel, if you'll listen to the way that you sound, if you'll find out what does your voice really sound like. Do you sound enthusiastic? And do you sound overly enthusiastic? Is there hype? Do you sound real? Do you sound sincere? Do you choose your words well? Is your grammar correct? Is your diction correct? Is there something you might be saying, some repetitive word pattern that becomes annoying to other people? Do you want to improve? Are you willing? Push yourself against the grinding wheel? Master the art of inviting. Master the art of inviting. You know, I know some people who've become very, very wealthy in this industry in companies that I consider to be next to impossible. Why? Because they have mastered the art of inviting, and then they've taken it one more step. They've mastered the art of inviting personally, and they've developed the skill of teaching others how to invite. When you have mastered the art of inviting yourself, and when you have developed the skill of teaching others how to invite, then this business takes on a life of its own. There's simply nothing I can teach you or advise you to do that will be of greater importance. That's step number 7. In the Getting Started workbook, I said that step number 7 was to learn how to invite. In the Staying Started process, I will tell you that now we take it to a higher standard. Master the art of inviting. Take on the personal challenge to master the art of inviting. When you have mastered the art of inviting, now a tool will talk. When you have developed the skill where you have taught others how to invite, when you have got a front line, when you have 6 or 7 or 8 organizations in your business where there's someone that you have enrolled who has mastered the art of inviting, your income has become permanent through that individual's success. Step number 8 is to learn how to effectively conduct home business reviews. You know, there's not much more I can say about this than I said in the Getting Started workbook. He or she who conducts the most home business reviews wins. He or she who does it the most wins. Now, I will simply tell you what I see as the most common error. The most common error is to do a series of home business reviews ourselves, 2 or 3 or 4, and then to fall into the trap of thinking that if we're doing it in our group, that's the same thing. No, it's not. What is a proper home business review? It is when you invite your candidates to your home and you are doing the personal enrolling. That is a home business review. When is the last time that you personally opened your home, invited candidates yourself off of your candidate list, brought them in and went straight through the steps in the Getting Started workbook and effectively conducted a home business review? I'm willing to bet, as you now review this material, that you haven't done one recently. And if you have done one recently, you haven't done enough of them. I will tell you plain and simple that the reason that I emerged as a success in this business is because I conducted so many home business reviews. People say, well, gosh, Randy, this is so easy for you. One of the skills that I have, one of the talents that I have, this ability to communicate. But you know what? That was a raw talent and an unknown talent when I got involved in the industry. That talent was refined into a skill in this industry. Specifically, that talent was refined into a skill in home business reviews. And it was because I did a series of really bad ones that one day I did one that wasn't so bad. And after doing a few that weren't so bad, one day I did one that was okay. And before I knew it, I was doing home business presentations that were quite good. And it wasn't too long after that that I started to take that communication skill and be able to impact more people in larger business settings. It would never have occurred had I not become willing. There's that word again. Had I not become willing to do home business review after home business review after home business review. Some were good, some were bad, some were well attended, some were not. At the end of every single one, I measured it. What did I do well? What did I do poorly? How can I improve? I'm going to be a professional in this industry. I'm not going to waste time, effort, energy, or money. That's what I ask you to do in step number 8. Step number 9. To truly understand the toolkit. And here I simply give you this assignment. I'm not going to teach you what I think the primary and secondary values are of each of those tools. I'm going to instead give you the assignment to once again review every tool. And as you review every tool, have a pen and a pad of paper out, and I want you to identify what do you think is the primary purpose of each tool, what would be the secondary value, and what would be the third level value. I want you to decide that for yourself. In order to decide that, I want you to separate the time and to review the entire toolkit piece by piece by piece. And as you review that toolkit piece by piece, I want you to write down what is the primary value, what is the secondary value, what is the third level value. You will truly own the toolkit. You will understand how to make the tools work for you if you'll engage in that exercise. And then go back and do it again 60 days from now and compare notes and see if you have different attitudes or opinions as you continue to grow and develop and evolve in the business. Step number 10 in the Getting Started workbook was what? Step number 10 was to act upon this information and effectively conduct 2 home business briefings, 2 home business reviews in the next 2 weeks. Here in the Staying Started manual, step number 10 is the exact same. It is to act upon the information contained on this audio file and in the manual, to reconfigure and to recalibrate your business, to truly and indeed start it again, to stay started by effectively conducting 2 home business reviews in your home with your candidates, utilizing the system as it is taught with your now higher, more fully evolved set of skills, once again launching your business. And I promise you this, without question, the greatest way to grow your business is to start a new one. Through my whole life, I try to get people to understand that. My whole life in this industry, the greatest way to grow your business is to start a new one. What does that mean? It means to sponsor, to recruit. The single greatest skill you can develop in this business is to enroll. And you say, wait a minute, is that a skill itself, or is that a combination of all these skills we talk about? You decide that. The single greatest skill is to enroll. Recruit, 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 the only sure way to success. You know, during the 52 weeks that I built a MonaVie Distributorship, in those 52 weeks, I personally enrolled more than 250 people. Do you know what's magic? 250 out of 250 called me. I didn't have to make a phone call. That's what it can turn into. How can it turn into that? It's a business of attraction, not promotion. That goes back to what? That goes back to step number 5, building belief. Step number 6, creating a candidate list. Can you imagine that? In 52 weeks of building the business, I personally enrolled over 250 people. I had more than 70,000 people join an organization, and I didn't make an outgoing phone call. It's a business of attraction, not promotion. If you will get started and stay started, and develop, ultimately perfecting not only skills, but developing and working towards the impossible goal of perfecting character. If those things happen, and if we then apply that combination of skills and character to this absolute beauty, this extraordinary opportunity, which is MonaVie, then great, great, great can be the rewards for others. And when the rewards are great for others, they wind up being great for you. Not surprisingly, there are rules in our industry, and we, of course, comply with them entirely. Those rules require that we give you the following verbiage, simply stating that MonaVie does not guarantee any level of income or earnings to a distributor. Earnings from the MonaVie compensation plan depend completely on the sales and each distributor's skill, ability, and personal application. In other words, this is not a lottery. This is a business. It requires effort. It requires work. It requires the development of skills. I really encourage you to see the MonaVie income disclosure statement at www.monavie.com, because there you'll find complete details regarding the earnings of MonaVie distributors. And while this is a disclosure piece, I will tell you that I consider it to be an incredible marketing piece, because you can there identify your own income need. You can find where that need is met in the compensation plan. You can then approach your upline, a tour guide, and say, what have I got to do to gain this rank so I can earn the incomes that are described on the MonaVie income disclosure statement? And please understand that product purchase is not required to become a MonaVie distributor, and participation in the auto ship program is not required to be a distributor. Also, please understand that one need not acquire tools to become a distributor. These things that we do to facilitate your business, they're things that I personally believe will help your business, but understand, you don't have to purchase products to be a distributor, you don't have to be on auto ship, and you don't have to buy sales tools. All of that said, get yourself on the bus. There's a seat for you. You might be wondering exactly who I am and what my affiliation is. You know, my name is Randy Shroeder, and I have been a full-time participant in this network marketing industry for 20 years. I believe that 20 years ago I was put in the top of a funnel, and for 20 years I was working my way closer to the day when I would find the opportunity, which of course I now know to be MonaVie. I became a MonaVie distributor on August 28th of 2008. The next 52 weeks were for me a joy. I consider them to have been the most productive 52 weeks of my entire career. During that time I became a Black Diamond, built a remarkable distributorship. And then my long-term friend Dallin Larson, one of the founders, the CEO of MonaVie, asked me if I'd be willing to change my role. And the change that he asked was for me to stop being a distributor. At first, that was an uncomfortable thought. For the last 20 years, being a network marketing distributor is not just what I do, it's what I am. But Dallin said, Randy, I want your life experiences to impact all of the international development of MonaVie, not just your business. Would you do it? And only because it was Dallin, I said yes. And so what is my role specifically? I am the International Distributor Ambassador. I am in partnership with you in the development of your MonaVie business.